describing an underwater UFO as large as a football field, moving at hundreds of miles per hour underwater.
Have you met with people with direct knowledge or have direct knowledge yourself of non-human origin craft?
Yes, personally.
An underwater UFO as large as a football field.
Piloted this craft.
Biologics came with some of these recoveries. Yeah.
Aliens exist and President Trump knows about it.
The United States and Israel have been in contact with a group of aliens for years.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology.
We are not all to be traced back to one blob of germplasm.
And the implant is finally removed.
There's no evidence how the object got inside the body.
Can you comment on the drones?
Our military knows where they took off from. Something strange is going on. For some reason, they don't want to tell the people.
What storm, Mr. President?
You'll find out.
Oh my fucking god. I'm sorry guys. It's just like the third time that I'm starting this live stream and something is off, man. Something is off because I forgot to demute, to not mute my microphone, bro. What the heck? And I'm starting to talk for like 3 minutes in and you don't hear shit. I don't know what's happening with me, bro. Maybe it's because my lip is fucked up though, so don't look at my lip, man. My immune system is fighting against me. Nah, man, it's healing, you know. It's been a rough time, man. It's hard to, you know, get the videos up. Get the weekly live stream in though. It's gonna be more though, it's gonna be more. But I know I'm saying that every time. We'll see what happens. We'll see when it really happens. So, it's gonna be a banger video that we are going to take a look at right now though, because it's Jason Samosa. Jason Samosa. I want to eat some samosas now, bro. It's gonna be about UFOs, man. It's gonna be about who's pulling the strings behind this whole thing, you know. What's been going on with UFO disclosure? Why is it so weird? Why is everything so fucked up? Like, why don't we get any kind of truth? Why is it all just talking? Like what I'm doing right now. It's all just talking, you know? And we don't really get anything real. And there's probably someone behind it. Or some people that probably are not in the government. At least not in the government that we see, right? And we're looking for answers. And Jason is gonna give us the answer. So thank you, Jason, for your work, man. Appreciate you. Appreciate you a lot for this. So I put all the links to his socials, YouTube, X account, Patreon into the description. So go give him a follow, support that guy. Love you for this work, man. Really love you for this work. So I really hope you're okay with that, doing the live stream. I did ask you in the video down below. Sadly, did not get an answer, man. So I hope you're alright with that. If not, man, let me know, dude. I really do. I really do hope you are, though. So yeah, with that, man, I would say we're just hopping into the video, to be honest, because I don't want to waste any more time, because I've been wasting quite some time. Yeah, just because I'm not able to get the live stream started properly. Today is a weird day, guys. Today is a weird day. So with that being said, let's hop into the video. And before we start, one more thing. If you're new to the channel, guys, I appreciate you being here. On my channel, Enigma, we are basically looking into all the discoveries, into all the, not into the discoveries, into the mysteries that are happening in this world, man, where we are looking for answers that don't make sense, where people want to sell us shit, you know, and want to shut our mouth. But I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna ask questions. I really try to dig into everything, right? I'm not biased. Maybe a little bit here or there, but I'm looking for the truth. And if you also want to look for truth and have a community and do this together, hit the subscribe button, bro. Or sister. I appreciate you being here, man. So with that being said, let's go.
The real masters of the UFO topic do not reside in the government. Instead, this issue is held by an illegal, internationalist regime and global cabal that mixes corporate, military, political, intelligence, and criminal interests, and that has seized the UFO issue and made it the source of their wealth and power.
Oh shit.
That's what former State Department and counterproliferation analyst Matthew Brown revealed when he came out last year.
This doesn't ultimately reside in the government anymore. This is held in an illegal internationalist regime that have come together, and they have made it the source of their wealth and power.
The whole world is waiting on the government that they will finally reverse their policy of secrecy on the UFO issue. But what if it's not ultimately in their hands? What if I told you that there's a force that lingers behind them, a supra-national brotherhood that lives in boardrooms, criminal networks, and transnational lobbying groups, and that seized the UFO issue nearly 100 years ago?
God damn.
What if I could show that to you in a shape and a form that you found undeniable? Well, to do that, today I'm going to have to take you back before Roswell and Kenneth Arnold, to the era when this brotherhood seized control. This is a story about what really happened in World War II, how a group of powerful Nazis executed an unthinkably vast escape plan, exfiltrating enough industry, gold, technology, and personnel to launch a covert Fourth Reich.
God damn! I'm sorry guys, but this is the real shit. I swear, I can tell already, my boy Jason. Thank you. Like, seriously. This is amazing already, because I can tell you dug deep into it. You know? Because this is the thing. It's like everybody, not everybody, but like the majority of people that you're talking about this UFO thing, if you come up with Nazis, either they're like, yeah, dude, come on, man. Get out of here, you know, with all this like Nazi flying saucer type shit. Or you have the other people that are really digging into that. Like dark journalists, you know, Joseph Farrell and all those guys, where you can tell, oh damn, there's really something to that. And not just a little bit, it's basically the main thing. You have like all these guys like Werner von Braun and all those guys being, yeah, basically infiltrated, like America, South America. They have their tentacles everywhere. So everything is coming kind of from like Nazi things, right? So, a very good intro, man. Got me hooked instantly. Good stuff, bro. Good stuff.
Of how transnational business interests betrayed their own countrymen in a bid to steal the real spoils of that war. The strange secret machines that would suddenly be seen all over the world in the post-war era. It's the story of how a traitorous marriage between the aristocracy, the Nazis, organized crime, and global finance led to the emergence of a breakaway civilization running in parallel alongside our everyday lives. And as we go about telling that story, we will finally identify the mysterious entity that Tom DeLonge and his high-ranking military advisors cautiously encoded in his works of fiction. The legendary Maynard Consortium, an organization that researchers have been trying to identify for over a decade. Well, today, we identify it. So sit tight and get comfortable. The only thing I can promise you is that once we're done, you won't be able to look at our world in the same way again.
Oh, Jason. Bring it on, man.
On the 5th of April 2016, Tom DeLonge released his novel Secret Machines to the world with very little fanfare. The novel's actually a pretty good read, The characters are endearing, the plot keeps you going, but where it gets really interesting is when you know who informed its plot. By the time of its publication, DeLonge was being advised by quite a fascinating roster of characters. Those people included General Neil McCasland, commander at the Air Force Research Laboratory at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and a man with significant oversight of sensitive special access programs. General Michael V. Hayden, a 4-star general and former head of both the NSA and the CIA. General Mike Carey, who oversaw 13,000 airmen for nuclear response. General Pete Worden, the head of NASA Ames, and Robert Weiss, head of Lockheed Martin Skunk Works. And there were likely over a dozen others from the CIA, the NSA, and the Air Force who we don't have the names of just yet. But given that these were the kinds of people who were whispering to Tom's ear, the themes presented in the book become far more interesting. The novels do touch on territory that's pretty common in UFO lore. The idea that the government was covering up this issue spanning over many decades, that Area 51 and the Nevada test range are important locations, the idea of mysterious black triangles and flying discs, the role of consciousness and psychic capabilities, all really interesting topics, but none of it actually new. All of this had been discussed prior to these novels being released. So what's truly fresh here? What is it that is truly exciting about these novels? Well, there's a fascinating detail that many readers have rightfully zeroed in on. The whole point of Secret Machines is that the bad guys in the book are not the government. They're not even the aerospace contractors. The real enemy is a shadowy, private organization called the Maynard Consortium. Maynard masquerades as a normal business.
I gotta be honest with you, I never heard of the Maynard Consortium. And I also haven't read the book from Tom DeLonge. So, again, a lot of work for me to do. That day.
It looks mundane and even bland, but under that exterior, it is funding secret aerospace projects and intelligence networks that do not report into any.
Sorry for the interruption, but I want to pay respect to the editor. I don't know if you're doing that on your own, Jason, but I know how much freaking work it is to do all those cuts, to copy in all those footage pieces, B-roll footage, AI B-roll footage, which is very good, man. I like it. So either your editor, good work, bro, or Jason, to you, even more respect, man. Very, very nice.
Government. Instead, they are completely private. The idea of the book is that the real enemy isn't just an individual government or a particular aerospace company, as culpable as those entities are, but rather an obscure, supra-national private entity who controls those other elements. For 10 years, researchers have been trying to identify Maynard's real-world counterpart. So how do you go about finding such a thing? Well, luckily for us, DeLonge left serious hints inside of the novel. In Secret Machines, Maynard is described as having been founded in the late 40s. The initial funding is also suspicious, coming from Swiss bank accounts at the end of World War II, implying some kind of Nazi lineage. The company is co-run by Western elites with German figures who are clearly implied to be Nazis. Maynard also funnels money through what DeLonge calls shadow corporations that basically act like subsidiaries or intermediaries before the money and resources go elsewhere. In the novel, those little entities, those shadowy corporations, are funding important projects. Two very specific things are being funded, in fact. Firstly, Maynard invests in secret space and aerospace projects in countries like Nigeria, Saudi Arabia, Tunisia, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. And this leads to a breakthrough called the Arrowhead, a craft faster than any US technology, capable of even flying in space and with advanced weaponry. something super important here is that the arrowhead does not belong to any government. It belongs to private interests who keep that technology for themselves.
Sure.
If we have this technology, we've done some of it to get even inferior versions of it. Is that something that's going to be incorporated into the U.S. military arsenal, or is it something that's outside of it?
I think the U.S. military might be allowed to use some of this technology in the national defense, but I don't think they ultimately have control over it.
And alongside their aerospace investment, Maynard also has a second investment track. In 1964, Maynard contributes to the funding and creation of something called SWEEP. Now, in the novels, SWEEP spies on Area 51 and other secret aerospace projects. It pretends to be a friend of the US, but is actually an enemy plotting against it. Once again, it's not clearly aligned to any one nation, and DeLonge is clear to state that there was no record of it in any public documentation. Ultimately, DeLonge describes what Maynard creates as a breakaway civilization, a powerful, moneyed organization that owed no allegiance to geography or the other outmoded trappings of the nation state. An entity that lived in the internet, in anonymous boardrooms, in the interconnected invisible spaghetti of revenue streams and offshore accounts. Unnoticed and impossibly powerful, a force moving beneath global affairs for its own ends. Okay.
Every freaking time it is so incredible how Tom DeLonge is this guy that brought so many things forward. It is so weird, bro. Do you know what I mean? Insane.
Fascinating, tantalizing, but so what? Well, on the cover of the novel, it's keen to remind you that this is based on actual events. Almost as if it's trying to spur on a whole generation of researchers to try and discover its plot in real life. And you probably guessed it by now, but I think I found the real Maynard Consortium, and I think I've identified the real story. And the implications are astonishing. Today, I'm going to start to reveal that real story to you. Who ran it, what it was really doing, and the disturbing story of how it all went terribly wrong. But first, we need to talk about the Nazis.
Bring it on, bro. Always good to talk about them.
By August 1944, the Nazi leadership knew the war was over. They'd failed in their push eastward at Stalingrad, and in the west, the Allies had successfully breached Normandy and were pushing aggressively. Italy had fallen to the south, Romania had defected, and to add insult to injury, even some Germans were now turning against Hitler, culminating in a failed assassination attempt in July of 1944. Things were dire, and they had been for at least a year. According to traditional history, all that was left was for the Soviets and the United States to squeeze the Nazis from both sides until they finally met in Berlin. End of war, end of story. But that's not the real story. The truth is that while the German state surrendered, the Nazis didn't. On August 10th, 1944, a critical top-secret meeting was held in the Maison Rouge Hotel in Strasbourg. The meeting was organized by Martin Bormann, Hitler's personal secretary and one of the most powerful men in Germany. In attendance were the leading industrialists and business leaders of the German state, men connected to armaments, heavy industry, aircraft production, chemicals, engineering, finance, and scientific research. These men weren't just industrialists. They were the people who owned the Nazi war machine. The meeting room was swept with microphones and transmitters. Nearby suites were cleaned, and the floors above and below the meeting room were guarded to prevent anyone from listening in. When the meeting started, the message was blunt. The battle was lost, but the war didn't have to be. The titans of industry were told to prepare for a long-term covert campaign after defeat. Assets were to be hidden through foreign front companies. Shell companies were to be set up, Swiss bank accounts leveraged, holding companies established, money laundered, and critical technology relocated for continued development. The Nazi war machine, they were told, was going underground. Dr. Bose of the Armaments Ministry later reported back to Martin Bormann that the industrialists had accepted his plan. This legendary moment in history has come to be known as the Maison Rouge meeting, and it's one of the most important moments in the history of the 20th century.
Imagine you would learn shit like this in school, right? I think I would have been a pretty decent, I mean, wasn't the bad, like the worst student, right? But history was boring as hell. We're just talking bullshit as usual. Just imagine, dude. Love it, really. Incredible work already, dude.
In the 80s, researcher Paul Manning would find the original minutes of the meeting in files from the US Treasury Department. Those minutes relate exactly what had been said. From now on, the government in Berlin will allocate large sums to industrialists so that each can establish a secure post-war foundation in foreign countries. Existing financial reserves in foreign countries must be placed at the disposal of the party in order that a strong German empire can be created after defeat. It is almost immediately required, he continued, that the large factories in Germany establish small technical offices or research bureaus which will be absolutely independent and have no connection with the factory. These bureaus will receive plans and drawings of new weapons, as well as documents which they will need to continue their research. I know that what is being described here sounds kind of fanciful. The Allies were pressing from the west, the Soviets were coming from the east, Britain was now bombing over northern Germany, and Nazi Germany had also been walled off economically. Enemy trading laws made business with Allied banks and industry illegal, and the US had even launched Operation Safe Haven, specifically designed to counteract this kind of activity. The idea was to track down and intercept Nazi assets that were being smuggled elsewhere. The Allies were finally about to kill the beast, and they were doing everything to ensure that it couldn't grow another head. And if you think about it, of course they were. The world had suffered enough. World War II cost the lives of approximately 70 million men, women, and children, and had the cost of somewhere in the region of $9 trillion in today's money. And none of this includes the human and economic cost that had preceded it in World War I and the Great Depression. For 30 years, the world had been in turmoil. And now, finally, in 1945, there was a chance to finish the suffering. And that's why what happened next was so mind-blowing. Despite the bombing, despite the pressing from the east and the west, despite the physical and economic blockades, the Nazis successfully performed a colossal escape. In July 1945, the Senate Committee on the Elimination of German Resources for War would hold an urgent meeting to discuss something utterly astonishing. A declassified report from the meeting tells a terrifying story. It says Germany had hidden resources to finance a new war. How could this have happened? The report explicitly calls out the meetings held in Strasbourg in August 1944 as being pivotal in launching a mass evacuation. Most significantly, the report stated they have already conceived vicious plans for a third attempt at world conquest. This report was shared just 2 months after the official German surrender, and in a secret committee, it had been discovered that the enemy had escaped and was successfully preparing for another world conquest. I wonder if you're asking, how serious could this really be? How serious could this escape plan be? How big could it be? How threatening could it really be? It's one thing for a few industrialists to make an escape, but how big an impact could they really have? Well, the report tells us Approximately 750 German subsidiaries and affiliates in European neutrals and in Turkey and Argentina had been set up. This included 58 in Portugal, 112 in Spain, 233 in Sweden, 214 in Switzerland, 35 in Turkey, and 98 in Argentina.
Damn.
And importantly, these were just the preliminary figures that had been gathered whilst the investigation was still in progress. The scale of what had happened by 1945, in July 1945, was already mind-blowing, but it is just a fraction of the story. By now, it's well known that at the end of the war, somewhere between 30 to 90,000 Nazis would successfully escape to South America, where they wouldn't face justice for their war crimes.
Yeah,
Over
sure.
50 U-boats, the Nazis' infamous German submarines, would remain unaccounted for, and billions of dollars and gold would never be found. In fact, the volumes of gold that went missing are astronomical. Newly declassified documents revealed that the Reichsbank used the Bank of International Settlements to transfer 500 tons of gold to Brazil in 1945. That's $70 billion in today's money. Hundreds more tons were sent to other countries, and other billions went missing. Suffice to say that the attempts of Operation Safe Haven failed dramatically, so dramatically that it's frankly suspicious. This kind of escape simply could not have happened without some very powerful figures.
Was it 500 tons, bro? What the actual...
is sponsoring it. And it turns out that behind our official history of World War II, there's a hidden story. In school, we're taught a rather black and white story about how the Allies were at war with the Axis powers. But the truth is that there was a hidden third actor throughout the war. This hidden group existed in Nazi Germany in the same way that it existed in the United Kingdom and in America. They advised Roosevelt in the same way that they whispered in Churchill's
Rockefeller? Let me know. Rockefeller, Rothschilds, who do you talk to?
ear and counseled Hitler and Himmler. Churchill would even call them the Grand Cabal. Others have described them as a hidden fraternity and even a supra-national brotherhood. This shadowy group played both sides of the war, and despite the grand theatrics of Roosevelt and the hallowed call of Churchill, both sides were being played by a force so powerful that it hung over their heads like a specter. In the story of how the 20th century went wildly wrong, the founding of the Bank of International Settlements will be held up as
The Giza Death Star by Joseph Farrell. Oh yeah, bro. You're reading the good shit, man. Love it. Thank you, man. Gotta look at all those books. Gotta look at all those books. Thank you.
a terrible moment. Ostensibly, it had been created to deal with the sensitive issues of German reparations after World War I. The idea was to create a transnational institution which did not belong to any nation, so that this sensitive issue wouldn't have to be dealt with by any individual country. But its true purpose, it would turn out, was not to help settle the complexities of the brutal war that had just passed, but instead to ensure that the world's financial titans could act with total impunity in the next one. From day one, the Bank of International Settlements was devoid of any government oversight. It was effectively a transnational financial network with a black box at the center that no one was allowed to peer into. It was set up in Switzerland, but it operated under a treaty-based international status, had immunity from Swiss law enforcement, and had statutes that could override ordinary Swiss law. Most importantly, as researcher Adam Labor writes, the Bank of International Settlements according to the bank's charter and with the agreement of the respective governments, was immune from seizure, closure, or censure, even if its owners were at war. What a curious thing to include in such a bank's charter. And as we're going to see, it wasn't accidental. This was definitely intentional. The Bank of International Settlements is going to play a pretty central role in what we're about to discuss, but it isn't the only character. In fact, there are so many characters, it's going to feel slightly overwhelming. I'm about to reel off so many names, so many organizations, and so many connections that you may find yourself struggling to keep up with it. But I want to reassure you that
I know. I wanted to say, I can tell it's going to be so bad in terms of so much names, so many names, so many things that you never really heard of, that where you didn't even know that there's this connection going on. Already now there's so many things that I never knew. So this is something I can probably watch like 50 times and always get something new out of, you know? Incredible, dude.
That's okay. You don't have to remember every name. You don't have to remember every connection or every organization.
How long have you been working on that thing, bro? I seriously wonder how long you've been working on this documentary. Good God. Thank you for just bringing that thing out. I really feel like if I would have, you know, this thing is something where you could feel like, dude, I want to get money for this, like 30 bucks at least, kind of. Time-wise, it's incredible, man. You deserve all the views. I really hope it goes viral, dude. But man, you better stay safe, bro. Hope nobody's gonna knock on your door at night, you know what I mean? I mean, we're just a couple of minutes in, but you're like digging deep, dude.
All I want you to feel is the absurd way in which all of these people and organizations interlock into one coherent entity.
Yeah, dude.
That's the main goal. And so there's no better place to start off with than with our first name. And it's a man called Thomas McKittrick.
Mm-hmm.
In 1939, Thomas McKittrick would take over as the head of the Bank of International Settlements. McKittrick was best friends with someone you might be familiar with, a man called Alan Dulles, who was about to take up a role as the station chief in Switzerland for the OSS, the Office of Strategic Services, the precursor to the CIA. With the BIS headquarters in Basel, Switzerland, the two met frequently throughout the war. Importantly, Dulles and McKittrick were both representatives of the Rockefeller dynasty, one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful family of the 20th century. McKittrick, always loyal to the Rockefellers, would be awarded with a senior vice president role at the Rockefellers' Chase Bank after fulfilling his duties at the Bank of International Settlements in World War II. When McKittrick would take up his post at Chase, he would find himself alongside another Rockefeller loyalist, John J. McCloy. McCloy had worked for the Rockefeller family estate in the 1920s and personally had taught the Rockefeller children how to sail. That included Nelson and David Rockefeller. McCloy would become a member of the Rockefellers' Council on Foreign Relations, later becoming its chairman. During the war, he would act as Assistant Secretary of War, and once it was all over, he was to become the chairman of Chase Bank. As for Alan Dulles, he would act as legal counsel for Chase Bank and Standard Oil, the two jewels in the crown of the Rockefeller Empire. And after the war, he would be made the president of the Council on Foreign Relations. And by the way, McKittrick would also have a position at the Council on Foreign Relations as well.
Dude, this is already so confusing. Well, not confusing, but like overwhelming. God damn. They are like everywhere. It's incredible, man. Man, I wish we had the capacity to learn that shit, to keep all of that stuff like instantly in my brain. Because now my brain is fried because of too much social media, bro. It is, you know, gotta be honest with you, man. It's not too easy to remind, like to keep all those information like easily in my head. It is so overwhelming. Wow.
well. This little cozy set of relationships forces us to ask an important question. Who did McCloy, Dulles, and McKittrick really report into? Well, we're going to come back to that question a little bit later. But first, we need to really understand what the mood was like in the United States in the build-up to World War II. In 1933, when Hitler came to power, the mood in Germany shifted dramatically. The US ambassador to Germany, William E. Dodds, who had just visited the nation after Hitler had risen to power, would report back on his findings to President Roosevelt. He would write, "Germans guilty of disloyalty to the Reich, active opposition to Hitler's government is regarded as such an offense, can be deprived of citizenship and their property confiscated. Anyone found to be anti-Nazi could be transferred to concentration camps and subjected to the routine of forced labor." Later in October of that same year, 1933, Hitler withdrew from the Disarmament Conference and the League of Nations and made no illusions about his intentions to violate the military restrictions that had been placed on Germany. The prospect of war was so prevalent that by 1934, Americans were boycotting German goods and German shipping out of fear for a new European war. And they weren't the only ones who were nervous. By 1937, Roosevelt would address the nation, warning that the very foundations of civilization were being threatened.
Some 15 years ago, the hopes of mankind for a continuing era of international peace were raised to great heights when more than 60 nations solemnly pledged themselves not to resort to arms in furtherance of their national aims and policies. The high aspirations and the hopes for peace thus raised have of late given way to a haunting fear of calamity. The present reign of terror and international lawlessness began a few years ago without a declaration of war and without warning or justification of any kind. Civilians, including vast numbers of women and children, are being ruthlessly murdered with bombs from the air. Innocent people, innocent nations are being cruelly sacrificed. It has now reached a stage where the very foundations of civilization are seriously threatened.
What weird times, man.
This was 1937, and the president was accusing the Nazis of threatening the very foundations of civilization. And importantly, the rearmament and the bombs and the brutality that Roosevelt was decrying were not powered by Hitler alone. They rested on an industrial, financial war machine. IG Farben supplied chemicals, synthetic rubber, and synthetic fuel.
IG Farben, bro.
Supplied steels, guns, and armaments. Messerschmitt, Junkers, Henkel, and other aircraft firms built the Luftwaffe. And bankers such as Kurt von Schroeder, together with the Reichsbank, helped provide the financial architecture that made Nazi rearmament possible. These private firms were the war machine that Hitler was using. And so it follows that if these businesses could be slowed, if these financial mechanisms could be shut down, then the threat to civilization could be slowed too. But what if someone did the opposite? Well, perhaps we should go back to the friends that we were making just a little bit earlier. Because through this period, while the rest of the United States was trying to quell this machine, Rockefeller, McKittrick, Dulles, McCloy, and their friends were doing the exact opposite. The Rockefellers' Standard Oil entered a special cartel agreement with IG Farben in the build-up to the war. As a Time article from the era would report, the agreement meant Germany got the benefit of US technical developments, but the US did not get Germany's. As a tangible example of this, when American workers at Standard Oil developed a new synthetic rubber called butyl, it turned the process over to IG Farben and refused to give it to the US Navy. Future President
Trump doesn't like that though. I think he really doesn't like it.
Harry Truman, who would hear about this, would accuse the Rockefellers Company of treason. Later, he would state during hearings, even after we were in the war, Standard Oil of New Jersey was putting forth every effort to protect the control of the German government over a vital war material. As if this wasn't enough, IG Farben wasn't just getting exclusive access to American developments. They were also simultaneously getting legal advice from John J. McCloy, who was serving as their legal counsel. To be honest, who can blame them for seeking legal advice? As early as 1934, the House Committee on Un-American Activities had discovered that IG Farben was disseminating pro-Nazi propaganda in the United States, attempting to paper over the darker aspects of Hitler's regime. But it wasn't just Harry Truman and their House on Un-American Activities that was concerned about them. The Securities and Exchange Commission would also open an investigation in early 1938, this time into American IG, an IG Farben subsidiary operating in the US. There were suspicions the organization was being used as part of IG Farben's vast intelligence apparatus in order to spy on the US ahead of a conflict. When the SEIC team investigated, they found a remarkable list of people who were leading the American IG operation. On the board was the chairman of Standard Oil, Walter Teagle. Edsel Ford, the son of Henry Ford and the president of the Ford Company, was working there too. When Walter Teagle would be investigated by the SEIC, he pretended that he did not know the owners were IG Farben and the Nazi government. This is obviously absurd.
I didn't know, bro. It's like, ich wusste nicht. Das wusste ich wirklich nicht. Entschuldigen Sie bitte. Es tut mir leid. Es ist mir entfallen. Dude, man. I just said something in German like, I didn't know, man. I forgot. You know, it's like, what the... Come on, bro. Who you try to play with, man?
And even more so when you realize that when Teagle initially joined American IG, he served alongside Dietrich Schmitz and Max Ilgner, the brother and nephew of IG Farben's CEO, Hermann Schmitz. And by the way, on Hermann Schmitz, perhaps it shouldn't be a surprise to discover that he also had a seat at the Bank of International Settlements, working happily alongside Rockefeller loyalist Thomas McKittrick. But it wasn't just IG Farben that the Rockefellers and their friends were partnering with. This same network would become deeply enmeshed with the Schroeder's banking family too. Baron Kurt von Schroeder, the head of the Schroeder family, was a brutal anti-Semite who happily took on roles in the SS and the Gestapo. After the war, he would be described as being as guilty as Hitler or Goering. But before the war, well, he was close business partners with the Rockefellers. Together, they co-founded Schroeder, Rockefeller and Company in 1936. Alan Dulles would serve as legal counsel. Dulles was already serving as the director of Schrobanco, the Schroeder's bank branch in the United States. And perhaps it won't be a surprise to discover that Baron Kurt von Schroeder, the man overseeing the whole Schroeder banking network, also had a seat on the Bank of International Settlements.
Sure.
But there's another interesting interlock in England. Schroeder had set up a branch in London, J. Henry Schroeder's. There, he would appoint Frank Cyril Tiarks as director. Tiarks worked at the Bank of England, serving beneath Montague Norman, the governor of the Bank of England. Norman also held a seat at the Bank of International Settlements alongside Baron Kurt von Schroeder. Now, Norman is a fascinating character. As governor of the Bank of England, he was one of the most senior citizens in the build-up to World War II. And just as England was preparing to declare war on the Nazis, Norman made an astonishing decision. The Nazis had taken Czechoslovakia and had held their central bank at gunpoint, telling them to transfer all of their gold reserves over to the Reichsbank. 23 tons of gold, billions of dollars worth of gold, were at stake. And that was gold that belonged to the innocent Czechoslovakian people. Since the gold was actually being held in the Bank of England, this meant the decision would have to be approved by Montague Norman. Norman approved it,
of course,
using the Bank of International Settlements as an intermediary to get the gold over to the Reichsbank. Montague Norman approved the theft of billions of dollars from common people and used it to fuel a brutal fascist regime that his own countrymen were about to die fighting. Since the transfer went through the Bank of International Settlements, Norman would argue that he had to respect the neutrality of that bank during times of war. How convenient. But perhaps we shouldn't be surprised. Not only was Norman cozy with Schroeder, Schmitz, and the other Nazi financiers in the Bank of International Settlements, but he also had an astonishingly close lifelong friendship with the head of the Reichsbank, Hjalmar Schacht, who also sat on the board of the Bank of International Settlements. So close was the relationship between the two men that Montague Norman was the guest of honor at Schacht's grandson's christening. The child would even be named Norman after Montague himself.
God damn. Oh my god, bro. What is this research, bro? Stop cooking. I swear, dude, you're cooking like you're like, bro, you're like stirring in the pot like crazy. This is insane research, I swear. I gotta watch this shit so many times to really grasp what you're just talking about, dude. But I know what, as you said, it's not about the names, it's about realizing what is actually happening, realizing that all of the bullshit we are being told is just your lies. And just like, look here, look there, look there, look there. But in the end, there's like this gang in the background that are playing games together. God damn.
The scheming of this group was brazen, but the sheer scale of their activities still remained invisible to the public. That would change, however, in June of 1940. By this point, the Nazis had gone far beyond Czechoslovakia and Austria. They had seized, annexed, occupied, and invaded most of Central and Western Europe. Lithuania, Poland, Denmark, Norway, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Belgium, and now finally, they marched on France. When the Nazis finally seized Paris in mid-June of 1940, it was a sign that things were going from bad to absolutely awful. But for some, apparently this was a cause for celebration. A group of powerful American and Nazi industrialists met at the Waldorf Astoria in New York to mark the occasion. The party was organized by Nazi lawyer Gerhard Westrick and Dietrich Schmitz, the brother of IG Farben CEO Hermann Schmitz. And they managed to find plenty of Americans who were eager to celebrate. First, there was Sosthenes Ben, CEO and founder of IT&T. Just for context, IT&T controlled all telecommunications in the United States, Britain, Germany, and many other countries as well. In an age before the internet, telephones and telecommunications were the means of global communication. IT&T controlled all of these communications for the major war powers. To help him in his German subsidiary, Sosthenes Ben would hire Gerhard Westrick, the Nazi lawyer who was hosting this party, alongside Walter Schellenberg, the head of...
Right, dude? It's insane, bro. Oh my fucking god. What the heck? Goddamn.
The Gestapo, and also Baron Kurt von Schroeder, who we've already mentioned. The IT&T subsidiary in Germany would be used to produce military equipment for the Nazis: radio sets, aircraft communications, radar, radio tubes, and the Lorenz cipher machine, the cipher used to encrypt German communications. The same ones the Allies would spend so long trying to crack. Another attendee at the party was James Mooney. Mooney was vice president at General Motors, an organization that was owned by the DuPont dynasty. Mooney would frequently meet with Hjalmar Schacht during the war, and would use his General Motors German subsidiary called Opel. By the way, Opel's a very interesting subsidiary even up to this day, but that's a story for another day. He would use that subsidiary to build Nazi technology to fight against the Allies. For his efforts, James Mooney would be made a Grand Cross in the Order of the German Eagle, the greatest honor Nazi Germany could bestow upon a non-German. What a privilege. Edsel Ford was also in attendance at this party, and his father Henry Ford would receive that same award, the Grand Cross of the German Eagle, for his loyalty to Hitler. And when you think about it, actually it makes a lot of sense, because Ford had literally prioritized the Nazis' needs over the Allies on many occasions. As war with Germany became inevitable, the British military sought Ford's help to help them prepare aircraft ahead of the Battle of Britain. Ford declined. Meanwhile, he used his German subsidiary, Ford Werk, to build vehicles for the Nazis. Think about that next time you get into one of his cars. Ford, General Motors, and IT&T subsidiaries all proactively powered the Nazi war machine that was killing their countrymen. All of them contributed to and benefited from the murderous slave labor system inside of the country too. Ford, DuPont, and Ben all remained owners of their subsidiaries. They were literally profiting off of the deaths of their countrymen.
Alter. It's also fucked up, man.
Now look, at this point, maybe it's time to recognize that we've covered enough names. We could keep going. We could discuss the Morgans, the Mellons, the Bush dynasty, Brown Brothers Harriman, the Rothschilds, the...
That's the thing, dude. That's what I'm thinking. It's like, this is one thing. And you talk about the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, then you get into Israel, right? And how the Israelis, like, how do they connect to the Nazis? What were the Nazis fighting against? And how is all of the... Dude, it's... Okay.
Astors, the Bronfmans, and so many others. But I think by now you must get the point. There was an astonishing interlock with the Bank of International Settlements and the Rockefeller-Dulles nexus, Ford, General Motors, ID Farben, and Schroeder's at its core. And importantly, these groups were more powerful than the leaders that they stood behind. They were fearless. In fact, as one final short story, which I think is highly instructive for understanding the nature of this power that we're looking at, when FDR came into office in 1933, this same group of people found his plans for banking regulation so distasteful that they planned to remove him by force. The DuPonts, the Morgans, the Bush family, and their friends concocted a literal plan to remove Roosevelt and replace him with a fascist-style regime. Their German friends, Hermann Schmitz at IG Farben and Baron Kurt von Schroeder, agreed that this was a good idea. Their plan was to covertly raise an army under the legendary General Smedley Butler and then lead a march on the White House to install Butler into FDR's government, to run the affairs of the administration while leaving FDR as a powerless ceremonial president. I know what I've just described sounds almost impossible to believe. When I first read it, I thought this must just be a story that's been badly sourced. It is true. It's called The Business Plot. You can look it up. And it is so indicative of the thought process and perspective of this group of people that we're trying to better understand. Roosevelt avoided the plot, but no doubt knew that from that day on, he ought to tread very carefully. We should not be surprised to learn that in that same year, Roosevelt would write in a letter to a friend, the real truth of the matter is, as Roosevelt would write in a letter to a friend, the real truth of the matter is, as you and I know, that a financial element in the largest centers has owned the government ever since the days of Andrew Jackson.
Give me one sec. The real truth of the matter is, as you and I know, that a financial element in the largest centers has owned the government. All right.
Given this context, perhaps it's therefore no surprise that the Rockefellers, the Fords, Morgans, DuPonts, Dullases, Bushes, and Benns were not properly confronted for the treason that Truman had accused them of. They were already by this point untouchable. And I think this is deeply, deeply important when we turn to the UFO topic. Because if you want to understand who it is that's keeping the UFO secret, it's very easy to start after the war. It's very easy to focus on the CIA and the Air Force, and quite rightly, those institutions play a big role. But if we really want to understand who it is that's got a vice grip, not only on the defense and intelligence community, but also on the government itself, then we must learn this story, which reveals that the control, power, and manipulation goes back a lot further. Behind the Allied and Axis powers, this group acted as a third hidden actor. They fueled both sides of the war and profited greatly. They feigned support for their respective nations, while only truly staying loyal to each other. And despite this, because almost no one names them or defines them clearly, they remain practically invisible in most conversations. So let's fix that. I like Charles Hyham's terminology. He called them the fraternity. What is a fraternity? Well, it's a brotherhood formed around common goals. And if you think about it, these various actors had more in common with each other than with the peoples of their respective countries. Yes, they were often in competition, but they were bound together by a common fear. What if the people rose up and revolted against their exploitation? What if regulation was formed and it spread from country to country? What if they lost their power? These powerful men had realized that if they fought against each other, they would become weaker. But if they worked together, they could crush any attempt at dismantling their system of power. So often we're told the government cover-up started in 1947. Well, sit tight, because the way you view the UFO issue is about to change forever.
I mean, looking at the live stream that I did about I think Chuck Swindoll, about the Khazarian Mafia, dude, it's going back thousands of years ago when all of that started, right? All of those weird creatures sneaking into powerful positions thousands of years ago, bro. It's the cult of Baal, man, that's basically dominating the earth since such a long time. It's insane. We are living in a beautiful, but at the same time pretty fucked up world, man. I'm telling you guys. I'm actually thinking of splitting this thing into two parts, to be honest, because it's so much value in this piece of documentary. I don't want to just rush through it, you know what I mean? Like, it would be nice, of course, to have a bit of a longer one, like stream, but I feel like it deserves to be watched properly and not just like, all right, that was nice. Okay, see you, you know, we'll see. See how we feel. If I feel like my brain is just like melting away, maybe I'm gonna call it a day at some point. We'll see though. But it's an amazing ride till now, dude. I appreciate your research so much. I can't imagine how many books you read. God damn, man. And all the people that we're doing the books, you probably also got research from. Also respect to all of you guys. You know, things like this are giving me hope that we are getting into we're heading into the right direction, I swear. I can feel it, man. We're close, guys. We are many, actually. We are many. Sometimes we feel alone, and as if we are little, but there are plenty of us, man.
I know I've taken us on a really long journey there to learn all of these names and all of these relationships, but it's only with this context that we're going to be able to open this story up and discover truly remarkable things. So thank you for being patient. I promise you it will have been worth it. With this context, now is a fantastic time to go back to the Maison Rouge meeting that happened in August of 1944, because it's here that everything we've learned comes into sharp...
One more time?
Because it's here that everything we've learned comes into sharp focus. Sources place the following figures at that meeting. Hjalmar Schacht, Baron Kurt von Schroeder, George von Schnitzler from the board of IG Farben in place of Hermann Schmitz, and Dr. Kasper, representative of Krupp, in place of Krupp. This means that the most significant German fraternity figures were all in attendance or represented at the Maison Rouge. And then you have Peter Lavender, who places some fascinating characters there alongside them.
The Nazi cult and diaspora, how it was organized, how it was funded, and why it remains a threat to global security in the age of terrorism. All right.
According to Lavender, Emil Heffrich, who ran the German subsidiary of Standard Oil, was in attendance, as was Dr. Sincerin, who ran the Messerschmitt subsidiary that worked closely with the German subsidiary of General Motors, Opel. And then there was Emil Heinrich Meyer, who worked for the German subsidiary of IT&T that was controlled by Sosthenes Benn. So now when you ask the question, would the American and British fraternity members have known that their colleagues in Germany were planning this vast escape plan? The answer comes into sharp focus. It's almost impossible to imagine that Rockefeller, Dulles, Sosthenes Benn, the Bank of England, and all of their friends wouldn't have known about this plan to evacuate all of this industry. And all of that, of course, is before you remember that important transactions went right through the Bank of International Settlements. In March of 1945, the Reichsbank requested that 500 tons of gold, $70 billion in today's money, as we mentioned earlier, be sent to the bank in Brazil. The BIS approved it. Who was in charge at this time? Well, of course, it was Rockefeller loyalist Thomas McKittrick, meaning the Rockefellers would have had deep inside knowledge of this vast evacuation plan that was in progress. The case of Thomas McKittrick reminds us that the fraternity were not only aware of this vast evacuation, but were approving and facilitating it through all of their institutions. But the sheer scale of their complicity and support for their German counterparts comes into sharp, razor-sharp focus when we ask a vital question. How did the wartime intelligence agencies fail to detect this vast escape plan? Well, perhaps now is a good time to ask the question, who is running those intelligence agencies? The Office for Strategic Services, the precursor to the CIA, was run by Wild Bill Donovan, a Wall Street lawyer with a seat on the Council of Foreign Relations, close friends with Winthrop Aldrich, the man who was the chair at the Rockefeller-controlled Chase Bank, who recruited Alan Dulles and the Mellons to work with him at the OSS, alongside two sons of J.P. Morgan to act as special assistants to him, including Julius Spencer Morgan and Henry Sturgis Morgan. I don't think you can get any more fraternity than what we've just described, and so it's no wonder that the OSS ended up being complicit in the Nazis' escape. But there were other intelligence networks too, so perhaps we should look to them. What about the SOE, the Special Operations Executive? This was the British wartime intelligence agency that was set up in England to help deal with all of these kinds of critical issues, including monitoring where the Nazis were going and what they were doing. Well, this agency was run by someone called Charles Jocelyn Hambro. Charles Hambro ran the legendary Hambro's Bank in London and was also a director of the Bank of England, serving directly under Montague Norman. So influential and connected was Charles Jocelyn Hambro that he was even offered the governorship of the Bank of England himself, although he declined. So with Montague Norman effectively hanging behind the Special Operations Executive, I think we can potentially rule out that agency as being particularly helpful. But then there's the British Security Coordination. This was an agency run by William Stevenson. Stevenson was a long-time business partner and friend of Wild Bill Donovan, and someone who mixed with the very cream of the crop of the British elite in London before the war. Interestingly, his BSC offices were located on the 36th floor of the Rockefeller Center. The Rockefellers had offered the BSC and the SOE staff free rent inside of their building for their wartime operations. Very generous, but as we're going to see, also deeply suspicious. But what if I told you there was one more intelligence agency? One more intelligence agency that people seldom look at. Most people can not even name it. It flies under the radar so often, but it turns out that the OSS didn't have any jurisdiction in a critical area relevant to our investigation. South America. The OSS didn't have any access to South America according to their wartime mandate. That was reserved for another agency. The Office for the Coordination of Inter-American Affairs, an intelligence agency dedicated to this critical region, and therefore deeply, deeply relevant to the question of whether anyone would have seen all of this money and all of these people and all of this infrastructure flowing out of Europe and heading down to South America. Who do you think would be the right person to run such an agency? Who would you trust? Well, what have I told you? It was run by Nelson Rockefeller, the son of J.D. Rockefeller Jr., the man at the very center of this entire nexus that we've been analyzing. The man who'd effectively married himself to the Nazi war machine, and whose subordinates and friends were working proactively to bypass Operation Safe Haven and set up Nazi industry in preparation for this Fourth Reich that we've discussed. This man was acting as a bottleneck for the information and intelligence on what was really going on in South America. I want you to think about this for a second, really try and digest it. The people who were organizing and executing the Maison Rouge plot were basically indistinguishable from the people who were running the Allied intelligence networks. I'm going to say it again because it's so important, not just for this video and this research project, but for how we look at the world in general. The people who were running the Maison Rouge escape plan and overseeing the mass evacuation of Nazi tech and industry out of Europe were practically indistinguishable from the people who were running the Allied intelligence agencies. They were the same network. This supranational brotherhood was best friends before the war. During the war, they remained business partners and continued to make money together whilst their mutual countrymen suffered. Then they planned and executed the evacuation of Nazi industry as the war ended, and they simultaneously controlled all the intelligence agencies that were assigned to monitor and oversee them. And you know what's most important? Because they ran those intelligence agencies and they had access to all of the information within them, they could identify anything they wanted, any information that they wanted to focus on, any findings that they found to be particularly exotic or potentially profitable or maybe damaging to their peacetime industries. They could identify that intelligence and act as a bottleneck on it. So here's the question. What really happened during the war? What breakthroughs were made? What scientific leaps were being worked on? And what did this group keep for themselves?
You know what, guys? This is the point where I'm gonna stop it. It feels very good for me to stop it right here, because I feel like this is something that needs to really be understood in the way. I know I'm repeating him, right? But this is basically what some people talk about when they say like the Nazis never lost. The Nazis never lost in terms of, yeah, they never lost really, because if you look at who financed them, I know I'm repeating him, but I just gotta repeat it for myself again. Right? It's like if you see who financed them, it's the same people. The same people that wanted to escape, being the Nazis, are the same that they fought against, that financed them. So in the end, they're all the same. So in a way, they're just saving their own project. So they had something bigger going on. Like this is just, it's their chessboard, and they're trying to pull all the figures away. It is insane, dude. Bro. Guys, you better protect Jason Samosa. I swear. This is such good research and compiled in a way that is good to understand. So many information, so much information, so many beats you would have to read, so many connections you would have to make over such a long time to bring it into a video like this. If you're not into video editing at all, or like something like this, you have no idea how much energy it takes and how much work that shit is. It can be so tiring to do all of this. I really want to know if you did that on your own, bro. If you did it on your own, kudos. Whatever you did it, however you did it, respect to you anyways, but it's like amazing, bro. I gotta be honest, I haven't seen your channel before. I didn't know that you're out there, Jason, so... But like I saw one guy on X, forgot his name, mentioning your video, and that it's really worth looking into. So, dude, thank you so much. It's seriously so much appreciated, so much value. Probably top 3 videos in terms of information density, It's like, yeah, same thing like Dark Journalist kind of, in terms of value, density, just much better edited, gotta be honest, so amazing, bro. Again, guys, if you're still sticking around, go give him a follow. All the links in the description, Patreon, X, YouTube account, give him a follow, leave a donation, man. And also, of course, if you enjoyed the time sticking around with me, watching my, very tense face, just like this all the time, hit the subscribe button, say hello, man, hit the like button, share the video. If you want to see more like this, I'm definitely going to continue watching that, and I hope not just like in 1 week, but like the next couple of days, following up with the second part, so actually the second half of this documentary. But it's so much information that I really want to digest all of this first before we are heading into the other part, which is probably gonna now gonna be much more about UFOs. I think it was Nashville, right? The creation of NASA, Werner von Braun, and all that stuff. I don't even know if he's also getting into the time capsule thing with Nixon and all of that shit, but there's so much that we're going to talk about. I can tell already. It's gonna be a good one, man. So guys, I thank you so much for sticking around with me. I'm gonna post on my X and everything everywhere. Well, it's basically just my X account. Don't have too much social media going on. Yeah, follow me on X so you don't miss any updates. I will let you know when I'm going to stream again. So thank you for spending your time with me, guys. Appreciate you so much. Have a good day. Have a good time with your loved ones, guys. And yeah, man, see you next time. I'm out of here, guys. Till then.